This is my escape. This is my anchor. The place I go every day to be alone with my thoughts. To prove to myself I can go beyond the pain.
Headphones on, rolled off. How the distractions turned off. All the excess gets burned off. I'm about to go to a world that's unheard of. This is where I leave the world behind. I go through hell to show I'm not the average kind. All the callous on
All right, we're good to go. And welcome to Forever a White Belt, episode 4. And to my left, I have Buffalo Joe. To my right, we have Steven the Answer Back. Hey, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to kick this episode off today. And primary focus on today's episode is going to be mental health and how martial arts has impacted our mental health and kind of been somewhat of a savior, I'd say. At least for me personally, it has.
Absolutely. I think for me too.
And I know we've spoken about this, outside of this podcast on how much martial arts has played a factor in our martial arts, or in our journey. In our, I'm sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied.
It's all good.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah. How martial arts has played such a factor in our mental health.
You know what? Martial arts, because I'm a recovering drug addict, right? And,
Are you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I was a hardcore drug addict for a long time, and I bounced from treatment facility to treatment facility for a solid 10 years. And what I'll say is, like, martial arts is one of my anchor points to stay in this side of reality, and it's helped me be a better citizen. It helped me be a better partner. You know what I mean? It helped me be a better friend.
I couldn't agree more with you there. I share similar experiences with that.
Well, and for my part, so you can't calculate all the accidents that you didn't get into because you stopped at the stop sign. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that played a role in my life too, because for a long time I struggled with suicidal ideation, but there were periods of time where I was like on a really good even keel. And when I reflect on those were the times where I was training heavily, and felt like I belonged. That community aspect that inevitably is a part of the martial art experience. So, I don't know about you, but I can't spar or roll by myself. I could hit a heavy bag maybe, but the whole part of...
You don't get any better.
No,
it's kind of like shooting at bottles, you know what I mean? You don't really get better, and it doesn't translate well. So no, just being a part of a group.
I feel like, you lose out on quite a bit of the camaraderie and, the other aspects that martial arts can bring, like community aspects. Find your people in this. I know all my social interactions are really revolved around martial arts.
Oh yeah.
There was like this weird thing that happened when I got out of the Army, right? And you probably experienced this too. When you get out of the Army, like all of a sudden, like you don't have a team anymore. Like you don't have like a stack team, you don't have a gun truck team, you don't have a platoon that backs you, you know what I mean? Like you're used to being around all these dudes that have your back with guns that will die for you. And then when you get out, you go to school or you go to your normal job, and it's really hard to like get back into like the regular society,
Yeah.
And
I bet you feel pretty lonely.
Absolutely.
Right? Just somewhat alone.
Yeah.
Trying to find your place and your people. Yeah.
And when I put on the gi, you know what I mean? When I put on the gi, and I had this a buddy of mine. His name we called him BDR, and this guy was an ex-special forces guy, right? And he was totally cool, and we would try to kill each other all day, like the whole time, just talking crap to each other. We'd do stuff to each other that we wouldn't do to to everybody else. You know what I mean? It was strictly reserved for your friends. You know. Kind of like when me and you go, you know,
give each other.
Yeah, we beat on each other a little extra, you know.
Why not? Right?
Yeah,
That's how we all get along.
yeah. That's
You don't really know someone loves you until they take your belt off and wrap it around your neck.
Oh,
there it is.
I know. That's how
That's
you'll
love.
know they love you. They let you wake back up.
Yeah.
They wake you up. Oh. I didn't want you.
The
you know,
assassin choke.
sleep forever. Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow. Steven, do you have any personal testimonies on
Yeah, well, I mean,
martial
beyond just like what I touched on earlier about feeling or recognizing like a state of mental health while I was engaged in training, I also feel like there's this component. We see a lot of this in the modern world where people are struggling with anxiety disorder, or they complex PTSD, all these different diagnoses, which really amounts to, a lack of mental health. And it's been my experience that a lot of times this just reflects an imbalance in how people are interacting with the world. So, for example, if you walk out your front door and you see a cat that you didn't expect to see, and it sends you flying through the roof, you're screaming in terror, and now your whole day has been out of shape because you saw this thing you weren't expecting. You come to school and you tell me about it. Oh man, I was startled by this cat. I'm thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, have you not experienced anything really terrifying in life? And I think that between my military experience and in particular too, my time in martial arts where I had people punching me in the face, repetitively, it really is jarring to your sympathetic nervous system, and it kind of puts things in perspective. It calibrates you, if you will. And so when I go out into the world and things happen that maybe I wasn't anticipating, I can deal with it with a moderate response because I'm used to what a strong response experience should look like. This guy's trying to choke me to death. That requires a strong response. Not, oh, somebody cut me off in traffic and I don't need to respond strongly to that. And I mean, I don't know, I haven't done the studies or done a bunch of research on the topic, but empirically, just from based on observation, I am way more cool and collected than the rest of my 20-year-old peers at the university. I just see it. You know what I mean?
Experience now. For sure.
Yeah, I think
you've been through some stuff. Little things don't bother you like that anymore.
There was a paper.
That's maturity, I believe. That's what I think maturity is, at least. Or, I mean, I don't really know.
Well, and it's perspective. I have perspective.
Yeah, you have
ever been to the doctor and they ask you, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how painful is what you're experiencing? Well, it can the 10 is the most painful thing you've experienced. If the most painful thing you've experienced is a stubbed toe, then a stubbed toe is a really big deal for you.
Oh, yeah,
but if you've been gut shot, then a stubbed toe doesn't mean anything.
Right,
so we get to come in here into a relatively safe environment and get, a larger than life dose of stress in an applicable situation, a situation that should cause you stress.
Do you find yourself before you have to get up, say, to speak in front of a crowd or to do something hard for a job interview, or do you find yourself comparing it to stuff in martial arts?
I don't. I'll tell you this. I've heard plenty of people describe the fear of public speaking. In fact, the public speaking is one of Americans' greatest fears. It doesn't bother me in the least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do still get some jitters before I'm going to roll with somebody who I know is strong and good, and I want to impress my coach or whatever. I still have like some instinctive competitive drives, and so but that's where I feel it. I feel probably the most amount of stress when I'm in here and Nate's punching me in the face, and then the rest of the week is pretty.
I like to stress people out.
It's pretty low. Yeah, it's pretty. It turns the volume down.
Sure. Yeah. I remember I had to go, and you actually came to see this talk, that I had to give.
It was a great time.
Yeah, it was an hour. It was an hour long, and it was, and I was nervous about it, and I remember thinking, okay, man, you're about to go speak in front of 300 people.
It was your first one, wasn't it?
That was my first. Yeah. That was my first one. Yeah, I've done more since, but that was my first one, and I remember thinking, like, how nervous were you in your first jiu-jitsu competition? And you had to compete in front of probably the same amount of people, and you might have gotten strangled unconscious.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, let's be real here. They could have broken your arm.
yeah, they could have broken my arm or tore my knee up, whatever. But all you have to do is just get up and just talk. Just open your mouth. I'm doing that right now. So
Two different levels of stress, but you're able to compare one to the other. And help you get through that stressful
man.
situation. That's
Well, my nervous system doesn't really know the difference. It just recognizes cortisol and adrenaline.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like,
true.
it is all about perspective. And a lot of things can be managed in that way.
So you came to us after you had trained at another place. You had trained at that other place for about 3 years. What was the break in training? How long was it?
It was a 6-year break.
A 6-year break?
Yeah.
Oh,
about as long as I took in between competitions. Like 6 or 7 years.
7 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, too, and this is kind of on topic, the precursor to that break was a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Cheddar bomb.
Yeah. My battle with my mental health had reached an impasse.
Yeah.
And I attempted to exit stage left.
Sure.
Were you doing martial arts at that time?
I was somewhat. I was showing up like once a week just to show up. Mostly because I still wanted to support the gym, but I was in a really dark place. I'd fallen back into
4 days is probably right where you need to be.
That's right where I'm at right now. Things are
What
great.
keeps you from going left?
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of things in my life
Yes,
now
sir.
that are keeping
Yes,
me
sir.
on the
We're
beam.
glad you're here too.
So I'm really glad I'm here as well. And I tell you what, this might even be a great time to highlight the resources that are available in the community.
Totally
you know what I mean?
do
Like
that.
I wasn't fully aware of like where I could go. Or who I could talk to. It was funny too because when I talked to my gym partners after the fact, I went to they had a seminar. Like a guy came up to do a seminar, and I showed up. You know what I mean? Like hobbled in there, could barely walk, and my training partners were like giving me hugs and telling me, they were glad I was still alive. And I could tell too that they were sad that they hadn't been able to help me in that moment, and I didn't know how to reach out and ask for help.
Sure.
And that's probably one of the hardest things to do. But there's a lot of ways to do it these days. There's a hotline.
Yes, there is. There's a 988 suicide and crisis lifeline for anybody out there that's struggling with mental health. We will have the number in the description below.
Yeah. Had I had the wherewithal, had I known about that at the time, I might have utilized it. Hard to say. I definitely made some phone calls that weren't answered. So, you know what I mean? But I'm glad I survived that experience, and I made my way back into training. And man, it's hard to reflect on like the entirety of like that component for me.
Sure. So what was the things that were stacking up that like led you to finally shooting yourself? Did you shot yourself in the stomach?
Well, so I guess technically I was aiming for my heart. It's hard to do with a rifle, so it was the mechanics of it got in my way. Actually, it's funny too. I told people, they're like, "You're a terrible shot." I'm like, "I'm an expert marksman. I'm an AMT. This is a divine intervention that prevented me from being successful."
Sure.
But I relapsed. You know what I mean? I didn't have a defense against the first drink or drug, and that really quickly took me down a dark path.
Sure.
I was crab fishing at that time, and
you were
yeah.
funded.
So I was using opiates to like deal with the pain of working these ridiculously long and painful shifts, and my wife at the time was using, and so she's like, "Here, take this. You'll feel better." And I did for a time until I didn't.
Right.
And I saw that I wasn't able to be an effective father, an effective husband, an effective member of my community. And I just thought, you know what, if I'm just going to keep hurting the people that I love, I'd rather not. Maybe I can just do one last thing, and then I will stop hurting other people.
Yeah.
And that was the thought process. I'm not saying that that was reasonable or appropriate, but that's where I was at.
Yeah.
But it was primarily predicated upon the fact that I couldn't escape my addiction.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, that's tough, man. I know the feeling. Yeah.
How's martial arts helped you stay away from your addiction? Has it played a role in that, keeping you away? Yeah.
So there was a study done, and I should probably have like the research in front of me before I go naming the study. But
It's all good. It's out
basically,
there.
it was
I'm sure you guys will find it.
rat park based. So there was a lot of tests done over the years with mice and rats in experimental conditions, and one of those or a few of those were done with substances like cocaine, and they found that they put the rat in a cage, with cocaine dispenser, it would it would use the cocaine till it killed itself. I'm like, well, we've got this rat in a cage with nothing else, no other interaction. What else is it going to do? So so these scientists made this big palatial rat park where they had rats of both genders running amongst each other. They had, the spinning wheels and the tunnels and different kinds of food and all the things that rats would enjoy, and the cocaine dispenser. And once they had them in a community, the rats would almost never access the cocaine. And when they did, they didn't use it to excess. And what that tells us about addiction is that the best way to combat addiction isn't through, it's through community. It's clearly through community. I mean, that's been my experience, and some things are not directly translatable between animals and humans, but social interactions is one of those.
It's
So you're
interesting
saying
that
we
you bring
can
that
use
up.
cocaine a little bit.
Maybe you can.
A little bit.
I can't.
Because the minute drugs start to take over somebody's life, isolation is the biggest thing that starts to happen.
Well, that's something too that our culture actually foments. This idea that drug users are bad, or there's some sort of moral failing, and we need to separate ourselves from them, and to support them is just enabling them. And there's a lot of issues around. I think we're moving in the right direction, generally speaking. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening across the bridge in Portland with that we don't have time or the wherewithal to get into here.
Sure.
Not
Yeah,
this episode.
But martial arts as a whole creates connection, community, and collaborative effort. And so in that, you get this great outlet for your emotions. Masculine men who don't know how to exercise their testosterone-fueled drives get a vehicle to do that's safe and socially acceptable. And we get to spend time with one another, which, once again, is like the number one thing that we need as humans. We're social creatures.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where martial arts is a language. It's a body language that we're able to come in here, and even though we're not verbally speaking, I just from training with people, I'll know, if we train regularly, I know if you're having an off day, if you're having a bad day, if something's going on, if you're injured, if you're not moving how you normally move. And that also kind of creates a little bit of an opening and being like, hey man, what's up? What's going on? And sometimes that's all people are really, that's all they need, is that little opening. If someone just asks me, hey, what's going on? And that kind of just gets the wheel turning and allows them to, share what's been bothering them. And martial arts creates that.
Well, then
Or allows
jiu-jitsu
them
is
to do that. Jiu-jitsu is shut up.
Well, it's
Talk and then shut
let's be
up.
real. It's a bunch of hugging.
Yeah.
We were out here hugging each other.
Hugging, sweating,
I mean,
kissing, all of those things.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, really.
Yeah.
It is the gentle art.
well, I'm not kidding. There's actually a whole thing about skin-to-skin contact that promotes oxytocin release and these positive and powerful hormones. And the bodies don't know if you're hugging your old lady or if I'm hugging Joe.
I think my body knows. I think that's bullshit.
I like it. I like it. Even, maybe. I don't know. I think Joe's body's
Skin-to-skin
blind too.
contact.
Yeah.
You guys haven't seen my old lady.
My body
so.
would know. If
That all
not,
makes sense.
there's probably another box I need to check somewhere. I don't know.
Well, I don't mean to be in the middle of you two. Anyways.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Whoa.
We got work to do, man.
So, I think our pod just shifted. Let's start the OnlyFans, guys. Forget this martial arts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, we're
forget.
trying to get
Yes.
paid, man.
We're just
trying to get paid.
That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. I'm throwing my feet up on
Throwing
the
my feet
table.
up. I'll go get a little pedicure first. Make sure they're nice and shiny.
Yes, of course. Which, this is also what martial arts is able to do. It's able to bring us together where we can, just be ourselves, and we're able to shoot the shit kind of. And I don't think our jesting is ever in like I'm trying to put you down.
Yeah.
I am trying to put you down, but only because it's fun for us. Like
Yeah.
I know that I'm not really meaning what I say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're like I said, we're men. We're able to sit here
So
and
listen, there has to be a place for men to be able to do that.
Yes.
Like there has to be a place where we can say what we want,
little
where
locker
we can
room talk.
Locker room talk. You know what I mean? Like let it loose. I don't want anybody censoring my shit here. You know what I mean? I just
times to tell you to tighten up.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right. Because we have to go out in the public, and I don't talk the same way here that I do at the college. I just don't. You know what I mean? I don't. It's like I don't talk.
You don't say "oos" a lot.
I don't say "oos" actually at all. I don't even say "oos" here, by the way. Like that is some traditional, something that was. I don't even know what it means. What does "oos" mean?
Whatever you want it to mean.
It's similar to hua.
Hua, yeah. Hua. What does that mean? It means anything you want. It like we're ready. That hurts.
Ooh-wee, whatever,
I like push-ups. I don't know.
All that stuff. It all means the same.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, there's got to be a place for that. And you know what? The other thing was, my girlfriend, she said that what I liked most about you is that you had a group of guy friends, and the group of guy friends that I have isn't a bunch of dirtbags. Like you guys are not a bunch of dirtbags. You are like respectable people that like I would invite you over to my house for a barbecue. Like we can do things like outside of this, and I'm not embarrassed for you guys, no matter what environment we're in, And so like it was, and she has her own like group of friends that are females, and that was like one of the things I was like, oh, she's not hanging out with a bunch of dudes, like being passed around or whatever. No, like that's like, And
it is such a great place to meet people too, because even if you don't know anything about that individual that's coming through the door, you do know that you share an interest. At the
You know
very
something
least.
about them.
Yeah, you know that.
Yeah.
Some people you even share a passion with.
Sure.
You know? And you're able to build a bond just based off of that alone.
Yeah.
It's always, for my mental health, I feel like martial arts has always been the hub for me. If I ever stray too far away from it, my life tends to get pretty hectic. I start going down the wrong roads, and this just keeps me grounded, man. It gives me, like I said, a community, gives me my brothers, like-minded individuals. It helps put goals in front of me. I have something to train for, and it just helps enhance my life, not just mentally, but physically as well. I think staying in shape, or getting in shape, I should say, has really helped my mental health quite a bit. I feel better because physically I feel better. It helps me emotionally feel better. I'm not just heavy all the time. I'm able to get up and go accomplish some of these goals. And competition helps put something in front of you to give you something to work towards. And for me, it's not even about winning anymore. It's about just having that goal and going out there competing and experiencing the full experience of the competition. And I feel that more now compared to prior. It was, if I lost, that's all you thought about. You didn't really get to experience. You don't really hold on to like the training experience, the lead up to it, everything. Now it's like I feel all of that. I feel like it was great training. It was great going up there. Hell, the match was great. Win, lose, or draw. Like, it was a great match.
Yeah.
And the experience itself was great. And I think martial arts just really helped mature me so that I can experience that. I don't think I'd been able to do that before.
I've known you for a few years now, man, and I've seen.
How long have we known each other? I was talking with Justine the other day about that.
Is it 5 years now?
Is it? No, it's longer than 5 years. I want to say it's going
6?
on 7 years. That's what I told her, about 7 years.
I don't know, man, because
I think I met you 7 years ago, and then 6
I was a white
years.
belt when we met, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's got to be somewhere around there.
6 or 7,
Yeah.
roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So when I first met him, he would come in. Him and his dad would come in, and And I think that sometimes you would come in after a training session.
Oh yeah, no. It'd
Yeah,
be like our second or third training.
Yeah, and you would
session.
come to like try to do jujitsu with us. And I was like, "What are you guys doing?"
No, we're just dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
You're
was
like,
a
I guess
whole
we're gonna
bunch
come in and get strangled today. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. I have to go seek it out
You have
sometime.
to go see. Yeah, but yeah, I remember like you guys coming in, and I remember our very first sparring session, and I remember my very first session over at your gym. Like that was what like I was like, I'm gonna go try your gym.
Oh, the wall. Remember
wall.
the walls? Yeah, because it was smaller, so you couldn't really run. And
Yeah.
then, you're pretty. I remember at the old gym, it
Yeah.
was open spaces, so we're used to doing jiu-jitsu without a backer, like a wall or something. And in my old gym, it was smaller, so you had to contest with that wall.
Yeah.
I remember when we were doing jiu-jitsu and we got you up against that wall. It
Yeah.
was like, what the heck? I can't really turn over.
Yeah,
Damn walls
was,
here.
Yeah, I was so used to just
Yeah.
having all this mat space, you know, that I could
Yeah.
just do whatever I wanted. There was always an escape route, you know, and when you're up against the wall, you have to figure that out, you know, and that becomes a whole nother puzzle. But no, like, and that was kind of, you know, I've bounced, like, and we've went over this before. I've bounced in other martial arts and stuff, but I did Jeet Kune Do for a year, and I never went to anybody's house. I did Jeet Kune Do for a year, and I didn't like, and I did it 2 or 3 times a week. Not to the frequency that I did jujitsu, but I did it enough where like people knew that I was showing up, people knew that I was sparring, and people like. I just never connected with anybody.
Yeah.
You know? Matter of fact, I didn't like the coach. I thought that, like, I'd probably beat this
Little
dude.
egotistical.
Yeah, I'll
maybe.
probably beat this guy up. I don't know.
That's the thing with some of those traditional arts too.
Yeah.
It's like the coach or the instructor can tell you, he can wind it, like spin a story for you.
Sure,
right?
sure.
But will never actually like train with you. Compared to sometimes you go into jiu-jitsu school. 9 times out of 10, that instructor is going to roll with you.
Yeah.
He's going to show.
he's
you.
most
You
of
know,
the,
you're going to go as hard as you can with him, and he's going to make you feel like a baby. You're not going to go into some traditional school, especially with striking, and go as hard as you can with the instructor, and him just handle you like a baby.
Yeah.
It'll never happen.
Yeah.
They'll come up with all kinds of things.
And the other thing was this, man. So I'm grateful for that school because I guess there are other like Jeet Kune Do schools that don't spar, and we were definitely like a Jeet Kune Do school that sparred.
Nice.
But what I'll say is that after learning, you know, bunk sao and pak sao and like hand trapping and all this, like this is supposed to be high speed stuff. Whenever I would start sparring, I'd go right back to boxing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like this stuff is cool, but like I don't know. I think that boxing is just something that I can grasp easier, and it's effective, you know. And so I don't know. I'm not Tony Ferguson, so Tony Ferguson is out there making hand trapping a thing in the UFC. So
Well, it's definitely a thing. Like I think when I explain striking or martial arts in general to people, like I don't think that the technique is to blame. Usually,
Sure.
it's usually the application of the technique. So it tends to be like they know the technique. The technique looks good, and in demonstration, yeah, look, if it's like this, it works situationally.
Yeah.
Right. But for the technique to really be valuable, it's like most techniques are broken into parts.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get a piece of that technique,
Yeah.
and then learn how to link that together with other techniques to make it more effective. And in a lot of arts, they just like singularly teach the technique.
Oh yeah, no, that was the difference between the other Eastern martial arts I studied and boxing, because they would it's always footwork put together with the punching.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was watching boxing matches, I'm looking at the guy's feet.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the action was happening for me. And just like the stuff we were going over today, it's like, well, show me the footwork on this. It's all about the footwork.
Right.
And wasn't happening when I was studying karate.
Yeah.
Like they went over some footwork, but they didn't put it together.
Right, they left these gaps. And when you spar against them, you'll notice those gaps. There's always these pauses in between the strikes.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the handicaps. It's kind of like the handicap in jiu-jitsu. There's no striking. So when you start adding that striking element in there,
It's very different.
it does change the jiu-jitsu quite a bit. And then you're like, well, I'm practicing jiu-jitsu, rolling way out here all the time.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden someone starts striking me, and now my color belt starts dropping.
Well,
I'm not a purple belt anymore. I started being a blue belt. I started being
my experience with that was I love to play open guard. I love to play open guard, but when somebody can strike down on you,
or stomp down
or start kicking your legs,
I don't want to.
you're like, wait,
think
closed
of
guard has a purpose because I can break your posture and hold you down.
Yeah.
until
Think of
I
that
can do
turtle
something.
position that a lot of people like to go install in, where you're like this.
Yeah.
I've seen you pull that off in a real fight.
In
an MMA
I sat
fight.
there, and got my head punched. Yeah. Trust me, firsthand experience. It's not a good position.
It's
to
not
be
a
in.
good position.
And you can't just stand up. Just stand up. I'm trying. He just keeps hitting me. It's not great.
And that's why the style I came in here with was so different, because I was coming out of an MMA school. So I wasn't turtling. I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like I was always going to side control primarily. I'm
keeping those dominant positions.
Keeping the dominant position where I could throw strikes from. And I was, and the thing was too, is the guys I was training with, we would do it. We would roll with striking.
Sure.
And it wouldn't change anything because of the philosophy we were training under and just like the positions we were ending up in. To throw a strike was really to expose yourself.
You
always want to do position over submission, right? And I know it's pretty common for white belts, which is, if I had my choice on how to teach someone that has no experience at all in jiu-jitsu, I always try to teach at least the first 6 months and just go over positioning. I don't teach any submissions at all until they understand what a position is, until they know how to transition from position to position and know how to hold somebody down. Because that right there is more important than teaching them 20, 30 submissions that they'll never get to if they can't ever position the person properly in order to attempt those submissions. On top of that, if I teach you some positions, go over, let's say 5 positions before you leave your first day, I know when you leave the door, you learn something. At the very least, you can hold somebody down, and you always have that, again, additional factor in a real life scenario. I can strike the guy. So I can position them to strike them. Maybe I can't submit them, but I'll always be in a dominant position to hit the person or hold them down till help gets there. So that's just kind of my little philosophy when it comes to
If you could do it all over again, what art would you have started with? Would you still have done karate first?
If I can do it all over again.
Wrestling.
I would have wrestled too.
I would have wrestled and then got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
I think, I wrestled for 2 years. I was a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And then I gave it up because my family, or my mother and stepfather, they were all primarily into basketball, and that was during wrestling season. So to be a part of my whole family, I switched from wrestling to basketball because we were traveling everywhere. But yes, I definitely would have thrown in more wrestling just for the practices alone. They really gear you for MMA. I think wrestling is probably the most solid base you should have for MMA.
You know what? What's funny is and I think that maybe we have talked about this before, but I hate the fact that I went through school and I didn't know that the wrestlers were tough.
Yeah, right? You always was it the singlet that turned you off?
It was absolutely that's suspect, dude.
Yeah, that's
you guys are doing what?
The singlet and the positions that they're in.
Yeah.
Now we willingly put ourselves.
Were they
absolutely.
I had a gun, so
that's still my excuse now.
Yeah,
but
but I feel like if it was marketed
tired.
as a combat sport, because that's what it is, that might have changed my my mind as a kid, because I didn't play any sports in high school.
No, really?
No, I did not. No, I was a delinquent. You know what I mean? I carried knives. I carried guns. I sold drugs. You know,
and I drank a lot.
Did not make it to class.
Wow.
And
I was not me. I was a top athlete, popular kid.
are you serious?
100%.
Oh, that's why I don't like you.
And
dude.
then I had a kid.
That's why I want to
at
punch you more,
16.
bro.
Yeah, I had a child at 16 because I
Yeah.
was so cool. Like schools, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't popular at all.
Yeah, you had a kid.
All
you
of
had
a sudden,
kid.
I had my coaches because I was a freshman in high school. And
Yeah.
I was playing varsity football as a freshman. I went. Yeah, my daughter was born going into my sophomore year. I had to tell my football coach. He just looked at me and says, "Well," and then walked off.
Yeah.
I was like,
What are you gonna do?
lost all my friends, lost everything, dropped out of school, and all. I became a delinquent.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't like a bit of a troublemaker going up there, but I was a cool
Yeah.
kid. I'm still a cool kid. Now you guys are with me, so you guys are cool kids. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
What did you
Elevate
play?
guys.
Did you play any sports?
Not in high school.
Not in high school?
I
Really?
just chased skirt and drank.
Yeah.
And got good
yeah.
grades.
Yeah.
But I was mostly interested in chasing skirt and drinking.
So when I applied for this college, they asked for my high school transcripts, right? And I was a GED guy. I was like, why do you guys even want that? And so like I dug it out. I applied for it or whatever, to get it sent to me. And it turned out I had a 0.06 GPA, which is like a D, like a D, I think.
No.
I
It's
think
worse than a D. Bro.
Yeah.
I think
0.06.
Hold on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a D.
Yeah.
I think it's a D.
No,
I think you
it's
guys are wrong.
not.
I think it is.
What do you?
Hold on. I think you guys are wrong.
Okay, a 2.0 is a C.
Zero.
Yeah.
So-
The D average is a 1. So you had 3 D's, 2 F's.
Unless
is the
that
average.
D stands for dumb.
Bam. D minus, son.
D
Oh,
minus.
what?
D minus.
Yeah.
You're counting that as a D?
That's a D,
minus?
bro. What? Does that not start with a D?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
All right.
I
So,
think
like,
the illustration is perfect.
Here we
So
go.
listen, like I had my associate's
On
degree
the
by then, right?
technicality.
I had my associate's degree and I had a 3.6 GPA,
Mm-hmm.
and then
awesome.
and then I had a GED with like some pretty decent, like scores on there, and so when they like wanted these transcripts, I was like, I don't understand what you're asking for. Like, why would you want to dig that far back in my past? And when I looked at it, I was like, oh my god, I was like, these guys are not going to accept me, and I got in, man. And I got
for sure
in.
you got in,
Yeah, I got in.
Well, maybe they look at it as like, oh yeah, look at how far this guy's come.
Yeah.
Well, they want that for statistical data.
Yeah.
And especially Washington State University, it's a research university.
Oh yeah.
You're being
yeah.
you're like a little
so-
lab rat.
Yeah, well,
They're-
that makes sense.
They're constantly asking for, research data, and I mean, I'm getting surveys from them and all kinds of stuff. So like,
yeah.
Hmm.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, here's a question for you guys, since we have time.
Yeah.
Where do you think you'd be if you guys weren't doing martial arts?
Well-
You ever thought about that? Like if
I mean, I took a long break.
Yeah.
Part of that was just to physically rehabilitate from the self-inflicted gunshot wound. It took me months before I could sit up, because I had to have an emergency laparotomy, and they, split me from sternum to navel.
so, what brought you back then? Was it just something like a pool or something that?
I was exercising regularly. I got my strength back, but I always loved martial arts, and really too, it kind of came about. I had some lingering desire. I met you 2.5 years ago when I was checking out gyms when I first moved to Vancouver. I met you at Progress.
Yeah.
And I saw that I trained for one day, and I was like, I don't know if I have the energy to do this with my job and the other stuff going on. So I just took a step back until I was ready. But I got to the point, a couple of years later, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm ready. I think I have the time and the energy and the willingness and the right attitude about it. Because a year prior, I had talked to one of my mentors, and I was like, I want to get back into jiu-jitsu. He's like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you doing it to feed your ego? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it to feed my ego. He's like, don't do it then. Go do yoga.
Yeah.
So no, that year passed, and I realized that I was in the right mental space. And I talked to Joe, and he's like, yeah, my jiu-jitsu gym's moving like right down the street from you. I was like,
Stars aligned,
yes,
yeah.
yep. It was a sign for me. And then, I mean, everything's been so perfect since then. I knew it was the right choice, but yeah.
Yeah, I firmly believe that the people who like wind up here are the people that are supposed to be like, they're the ones that are like drawn here, right?
Yeah.
When I was like looking for other gyms, and Chris was like, "Hey man, like I'm moving like 4 minutes from your house." I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm not going to another gym. Why would I do that?"
Yeah.
You know. And then we got Nate, right?
Yeah.
Like when that happened, and I was like, "Well, now we have jiu-jitsu and we have striking. I don't need to go anywhere."
Yeah,
And, you know,
it is kind of crazy how all those things kind of aligned to now now we're here doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Sure.
That's kind of crazy looking back on it.
Yeah.
That martial arts, particularly our school, Columbia River Jiu-Jitsu, has brought us together.
Yeah.
To even put this podcast together, and that's amazing. You know,
Absolutely.
I know what was it? I was talking about a podcast years ago.
2 years ago?
2 years
No?
ago, I
Is it
brought
2
it up
years
to
ago?
you. I brought up a podcast
Yeah.
probably 5 years ago where I was thinking about trying to put one together. Then we spoke
Yeah.
about it a couple years ago. It was going to go a different direction.
Right.
And then, within the last few months, we're like, I think we were talking on the group chat. And we're
Yeah.
like, hey, man, let's do it. And I already had all the equipment.
Yeah.
So we're like, hell, let's just pull.
Let's just take the
do
shot.
it. Yeah,
Just
let's see
take
what
the shot.
happens,
Yeah,
man. I
whatever.
mean, it's obvious. I mean, as we progress, it'll become more and more obvious how passionate we are about martial arts, and not just the physicality of it,
Sure.
but also what we gain out of it. You know, we're bringing a personal testament to like, hey, I get a sense of community out of this.
Yes.
I have my brothers out of this.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I get my social interaction. Not only that, this is what helps me become a better person and the person I'd like to be. You know, both. I know they always talk about like martial arts as being like at least I like to talk about it as a 3-pronged thing where I'm physically, mentally, and spiritually
Yeah.
aligned. And that's what martial arts does to me. It aligns all those things for me.
You know, sometimes when I hit you in the face really hard, I'm actually trying to hit your spirit.
I know you are. You give me that spirit punch, and I feel it. I feel it deep in my soul. I do. And I just wipe my eyes. I'm like, oh, he loves me. Thanks, man.
I don't know where I'd be without martial arts.
Yeah.
Specifically like jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, right? And you call it just striking. I guess it's kickboxing, whatever. You know what I mean? We compete in
whatever.
boxing, we compete in kickboxing, compete in, you know.
Whatever.
It is what it is. But I've done a bunch of other arts, and they didn't stick with me like this stuff does. You know, I never wanted to come more. Right? When I did Jeet Kune Do, I would like show up and I'd be like, okay, let's get this hour in. Just kind of like running, right? kind of like if you're not a runner and you're like, I have to do some running, and like that's how I kind of felt about it.
Yeah.
You know, and then Tai Chi, it was more like, I don't know, man, kind of the same thing. Like, I mean, I would show up, I would do it, and the guy was cool. It's not like the instructors were bad or anything like that. It's just, it's not what grabbed me, man. It wasn't like I got my ass beat and then my brothers picked me up off the mat and we went and had food.
Right.
You know? And that's what happened to me like in jiu-jitsu, right? And
Well, some of these places, I mean, it's obvious. Like you're here for a paycheck, or you just started something because you used to do some martial arts, or you got to a certain like ranking or whatever, and like, oh well, I have the skill set. Let me try to do this little side hustle or whatever. But they don't bring the same passion. They don't bring the same like lifestyle to it too. Like I said, this isn't something that I do. This is part of like who I am. And when I come here, this isn't just like a place I go. Like I said, this is a place where my people are.
yeah.
So when you're here, it's more than just like, you know, it's more to me. It's more than just, hey, I'm taking a class. It's like, no, I'm seeing my brother. I'm checking on him. I'm seeing how he's doing. I'm making sure he's you know, in line as well, both mentally, physically, emotionally, making sure he's good, checking up on him. And you know, that's what it means to me. It doesn't mean just like, oh, you're here, oh yeah, hey, yeah, pay me your money and I'm gonna show you how to throw a quick combination or whatever. And I don't know if that's the best way to approach things, because from a business aspect, you should have, some of that line. But I only know how to do this the way that it's always been presented to me. And this has always been like a very intimate family thing to me. So when I spread this out to me, when I train with you, you're more than just like I said, just someone paying for my training. You end up becoming like somebody that over time, closer than that.
That's a good point, but I want to bring this point to your attention. Where we all came from, it was all small. Mm-hmm. Like I've been to some of the bigger schools, and it would be hard to have a real relationship with 200 dudes. You know what I mean? Not saying that you couldn't, but you don't know some of the ladies I know. Yeah.
Oh man.
But Steven, so you so after your suicide attempt, right, and you coming back into martial arts, what have you noticed since you've come back, as far as how you deal with like anxiety, stress, going into public, because you've got like kind of a heavy workload yourself, right?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of hats these days.
Right.
But I think, I'm a lot older now. I've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as well, and so I'm bringing that with me everywhere I go. And as far as like getting back into jiu-jitsu in particular, like I'm bringing with me a student's perspective to a lot of areas of my life where I wasn't doing quite that. Yeah. When I first, I really wanted to be competent and capable when I was first training, and I had a little bit of background. So when I was first training jiu-jitsu, I was able to like beat the guys that were a little newer. Mm-hmm. I managed to convince my biggest homie to show up to the gym with me, and I just beat his ass every day. Yeah. And I felt so good about myself. I mean, we went 97 out of 100 rounds, man. I was tapping him. But I don't think that's the right attitude if you're trying to learn something. Mm-hmm. And so I got into some very predictable habits, and you can kind of see it how I roll now. It's like, oh wow, Steven's really good when he's doing this from there. Mm-hmm. But there's room for growth in a lot of other areas. And so I'm really trying to get out of that and be open-minded and willing to do different things. Mm-hmm. I think that as far as like I feel like you were directing that question into something more specific though. Was it like a from a mental health perspective or?
Oh yeah.
For the most part, what I was really trying to do when I came back was I was trying to become in the habit of doing hard things. Yeah. And in that habit, I was going to broaden my horizons, so to speak, and just be more. It's like if you become comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's hard to phase you, and that's really what I wanted to achieve. Is I wanted to I started taking cold showers. I started like doing early morning runs. I just really wanted to. I wanted to challenge myself on multiple dimensions, and I thought that I could really do a lot of that by coming back.
Was that a real humbling experience for you, putting yourself in those situations?
It wasn't. It wasn't what it could have been, and I think part of that too is that my story is full of some really dark places and some deep loss. And at one point, I was a freaking crackhead sleeping on the sidewalk. You know what I mean? No teeth in my head, no shoes on my feet. Mm-hmm. So once you've experienced that level of
but you weren't paying taxes, right? There's always a plus side to something.
Watch out. I think the IRS watches this. Yeah. We don't know about all that.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely some upsides to those experiences for sure. But if you can stay in touch, if you've experienced that sort of thing, you can stay in touch with it, then humility becomes a boon companion, Yeah. And I think it was those experiences that allowed me to change my perspective on a lot of things, and that's been huge for me. It's been huge for growth. It's been huge for happiness. But yeah, I think that kind of. The humility aspect. Yeah. Sure. Humility is a central theme to learning and growth. And I think if you're going to study the martial arts, please, no matter who you are, try to stay close to humility, because that's where the growth happens.
And I think you have to get over some ego stuff and pride. Some pride plays a factor in that as well.
Oh,
I know.
I believe pride will get you in the door, though.
Pride will get you
Pride will
to
get you in the door, man.
Pride can also keep you from coming in.
Sure.
You know,
Sure,
if you're too prideful. I know
Yeah,
pride
yeah.
has played a factor in my own experience at times where I've been hard-headed. I've been unwilling to slow down the process, like we
Yeah.
spoke about.
Yeah.
Where you come in and it's just like, I'm just here to compete. I don't
Yeah.
really. If you can't beat me with me going 100%, then there's not really much I can learn from you. When that's a really closed-minded mentality to have, especially when you're going into a field like martial arts. It's so broad. You can learn a nuance or something from anyone. Everybody has their own natural abilities and are pretty good at something.
Yeah.
And the more they train, the more defined that becomes, and you can learn something from everyone. You just have to be open to it, and that requires some humility. I mean, I'm way more humble now. I'm the most humblest now.
Yeah, no, I caught that, actually.
Than I've
gonna say.
ever been. And but I try to be more open-minded and listen more and take your experiences and your perspective into, you know, the way I view things as well, and see if how I'm teaching or the way I'm viewing it is logical and makes sense, and if what you're telling me makes more sense than what I'm trying to do, then why? Yeah, we're gonna go with you. But I have to be able to look past that pride and ego to be able to accept that information.
So Nate, have you you've like battled with some mental health stuff too? in the past?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
What kind of stuff was that?
I battled with my own addictions as
Yeah.
well, drug, alcohol,
What were your drugs?
cocaine. I had cocaine. That white powder
Oh man.
was an issue for me for a little while.
Yeah.
Alcohol, of course, they
Sure.
kind of go hand in hand. I was never much of a pill popper myself. I didn't
Yeah.
like downers. I always liked uppers. And prior to me leaving the industry, I was a part of
The industry?
the strip club industry.
The strip club industry?
The dirty strip club industry. I was never a dancer myself.
So did you make ones? Was your paycheck
You know,
coming
back
ones?
at the
that naughty Nate stage
Naughty
name
Nate.
makes a lot more sense now.
Man.
Yeah, now you know the deep dark secrets,
there it
guys.
is, there it is.
We're getting deep on the pod today. No, I was a manager and a bouncer at these really, really nice establishments. Super high class, high end.
Gentlemen clubs?
Best gentlemen clubs. The best you can find on 82nd and Foster in Portland, Oregon. And if you know the area, you'll know what I mean. I think it has I think the nickname for it's called Felony Flats. So it's a great area to be a bouncer in.
Yeah.
And I just get, you know, I was in that industry for I've been a bouncer since I was 19. I was a bouncer for 12 years. I was in that particular industry for a good 8 or 9 years, and I just ended up getting wrapped up in the nightlife. Got away from my art. Had a bunch of like family issues that I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Maturity issues. I was trying to grow up. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think later on down the road we can make a whole episode going over some of these past experiences.
Sure.
And throughout our series of doing this, I'm sure we'll touch back on some of that stuff.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I've struggled with my own addictions and my own darkness, I guess. And, you know, it's taken me a long time to come to like peace with that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Once I was able to accept my demons and my monsters and find those shortcomings, I was able to and acknowledge them.
Yeah.
I was able to formulate a plan to rise above them, and with the help of, you know, people around me and my loved ones, my fiance and my daughter and you guys, I've been able to stay on track and elevate my life, and we're creating something to help I guess, paved the way for the younger generation behind us. You know, we have some individuals even in here that I'd like to be able to help support in ways that maybe I wasn't supported when I was their age.
Sure.
And I think ultimately that's my ultimate goal with what we're trying to do is provide something so that we can give back to individuals that I see myself in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sort
Well,
of.
I mean, I think that this place, giving back to the community, first of all, like, it's giving a place for psychos like us to be.
100%.
Right? That makes our community a better place.
Yes.
Because,
And
like,
giving us
because I'm in
structure.
here and we're strangling each
Yeah,
other,
yeah.
I'm not out there strangling somebody on the street.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. Yes.
You know, the other thing is, you know, when somebody walks in the door and, you know, like, I shake their hand, like, hey, how you doing, man? Even if they're already talking to somebody, I want to make sure I introduce myself, right? I want you to know that, like, hey, this is a place that you can come to if you want, right? And if you, like, come and test this place out, you know, like, this could be your team too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not perfect here, and I like I said, I make my past known.
Yeah.
Who I wasn't who I wanted to be, and who I am now is not who I was. You know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And when people come through the door, I want them to know too. Yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to sell you some kind of delusional thing where this is who I am. And if you're not fucking this, or sorry, if you're not this way, you gotta go. Like, no, I understand what it is to struggle. I understand what it is to live in that darkness and stuff. And I also, like I said, I formulated a plan. This is how I did it to get out of it. This is my life now that I'm no longer doing those things.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a part of that, if you're struggling, if you're, you know, you need a place to go, I want this to be that welcoming place. I want you to be able to come through these doors and feel at home. I want you, you know, as a family aspect, we do have families here too, where when you show up here and you have your children here, that you know that they're protected by everybody in here, that collectively we're all like-minded and we're trying to build each other up. It's a community. It's not just like, hey, a place I come and whatever. I go and lift weights and I go home. You know, at least to me, that's what I get out of this.
You know, there was a period of time in my life where I wasn't practicing martial arts, and I remember like getting up after I don't know how long, maybe close to a week-long run or something. You know, you don't really understand how much you're actually sleeping. You know, when you're just like smoking meth every night, you're smoking meth, smoking weed, and drinking, and you're like,
shadows are jumping at you.
What day is it? I was in a very delusional state. It was actually I wish it was just shadows. You know, I thought that there were bugs coming out of my skin, and I was mixing different kinds of soap, and I was like just
creating potions.
Yeah, creating potions, man. I was putting it all over my body, man. I was seeing and hearing things that weren't there, and I was just completely just insane and out of my mind, man. And it really sucked. It was a sad place to be. It wasn't one of these stories where somebody was like, yeah, you know, I was dealing a bunch of drugs and I was Scarface. No, man, it was the complete mental breakdown of a human being to the point where they were unrecognizable, you know?
I think that's kind of something for me too, when I think back to the person that I was during that time period, and I don't even recognize it anymore. You know, I don't even know who that person was. You know, because I'm so far removed from that lifestyle now. Yeah. And I credit a lot of that, like I said, to my family, to them, but also to martial arts.
Absolutely.
You know, because again, they're one and the same for me.
Yeah.
So it's helped me tremendously throughout my life and keep me, like I said, it's been the hub.
Sure.
And it's that one thing I can come back to, and everything makes sense in here. Even when I don't know the technique it all makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know that one of the hugest jumps that I had in basically being a human being, rebuilding this human being, right, was discovering jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and being around guys like you guys. Mm-hmm. you know, that was one of the things when I started surrounding myself with like other martial artists and the people that are attracted to martial arts, like there's no one demographic for that.
Oh no,
Yeah.
we're getting all kinds of walks of life.
Yeah.
We have police officers that roll with you guys.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. So that was the thing that I there's this police officer and you know he's a brother now. Like and I remember one day I was like, you know, you're the first cop I ever really liked. And he's like, and I get to strangle you, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, we get to strangle each other, you know, like, and then now I don't have like, you know, I don't hate cops. I don't hate cops anymore.
No,
like,
if
you
you're
know
a
what I
police
mean?
officer out there, we love you.
Yeah. That guy really, he like just talking to me, he really changed like my view on a lot of things. And it's weird that like once you stop doing drugs and you're out there doing illegal shit all the time, like
Is it
cops
weird?
don't hassle you.
Yeah. Is that
That's
Isn't that
remarkable,
weird?
isn't it?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I just like go through life paying my taxes and shit, whatever.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I think as we progress with this podcast, we definitely will be able to touch more on our own experiences,
Sure.
life, and you know, stories and situations we've all been through. That's just kind of like a small touch and a small dip into our experiences and our own personal testimony.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
I think, let me go over a couple upcoming events that we have going on. We appreciate you guys tuning in. September 14th for the NWC Northwest, that stands for Northwest Championship, by the way. I'll be competing in my first ever kickboxing match.
Woo!
That's 195 pounds. Yeah, skinny boy.
wow.
I know, right? That's remarkable.
Crazy.
What have you dropped? 270 pounds?
What do you weigh? That's what I just kidding. And then September 15th, we'll have a special guest. Big Ugly will be on here. It'll be
Big
me,
Ugly.
Oh.
Steven the Answer here, and
Nice.
Big Ugly. It'll be an amazing episode. Stay tuned for that. September 15th. And then September 21st, we're going to be taking 2 competitors up to Street Beefs for their monthly events. We'll have Chef in there. I think he's going to either do a boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai match. And then we'll also have Mighty Matt in there doing either a kickboxing match or a Muay Thai match. One more time, we'd like to put out the 988 suicide hotline number, suicide and crisis line number. I will have the full number in the description below. And that's kind of where we're at with things right now. Yeah, great episode, guys. I appreciate you guys for showing up today, and
Thanks, Nate.
we appreciate everybody for tuning in and watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Damn, when I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. I don't give a damn what you think. I'm doing this for me. So the world feed it beans. It's gassed up. Everything's